Electric cars are one of the hot topics in the motoring world these days, with more and more companies offering vehicles that run on electricity 100% of the time, plus the growing list of plug-in hybrids. The overall list of electric vehicles being sold in the U.S. is growing. In the United States, this makes a lot of sense if you live on one of the coasts, but how can people in the Midwest embrace this growing trend with fewer public charging stations and less access to every manufacturer that sells electric vehicles in the U.S.? Well, that's what this episode of Phil's Morning Drive is all about. We'll get behind the wheel of a Tesla Model S and talk with its owner about what it's like to live with one in Middle America where superchargers are few and far between. We'll also drive one of the most popular plug-in hybrids, the Chevrolet Volt, and find out if it's a better choice. Plus, we'll talk about what a local electric company is doing to make people feel more comfortable about making a switch. All that and more on this electric edition of Phil's Morning Drive. So just exactly how many cars can you buy these days that run on 100% electricity? Well, according to fueleconomy.gov, 24 electric vehicles are currently on the market that run 100% on electric only. Some of these you've heard of, like the Tesla Model S or the BMW i3 or perhaps the Nissan Leaf. Others, I'll bet you haven't heard of. Did you know that you can actually purchase an 100% electric and all-electric Ford Focus, a Fiat 500, or a Volkswagen Golf, which is known as the e-Golf? Now, except for the Tesla, most of these have a range somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 150 miles before the battery runs out. If you live in a big city and have a reasonable commute, this isn't a big deal. But as a result, most of these are what we would refer to as a city car. But if you live in a rural area or you live on the outskirts of a city where public charging is all but non-existent, this can be an issue. Which brings us to the plug-in hybrid, which some people think is the bridge technology because most of them can drive on electric only for just a few miles before they switch to gas. But you still get much better gas mileage than a gas-only vehicle, and you need to fill up a lot less often. The car we're currently driving is a 2016 Chevrolet Volt, which can go over 50 miles on a charge using no gas whatsoever. Other plug-ins use less than this. This is really one of the highest on the market. Most of them go between 15 and 20 miles before they switch over to the gas engine. The Volt is one of the most popular plug-in hybrids, and there are three good reasons for that. Number one, it's been around since 2011, so it's pretty well known. Number two, it has one of the highest electric-only ranges at 53 miles. Number three, it's reasonably priced, starting at $33,000 before incentives. The Chevrolet Volt is such an interesting car because it was one of the first really mainstream plug-in hybrids. A lot of folks had hybrid vehicles like the Toyota Prius, and several were offered from Lexus and different companies in the early 2000s, mid-2000s range. But this car, being introduced in about 2010 or 2011, was really the first car that brought the idea and the concept of a plug-in hybrid to more of the mainstream vehicles and just mainstream customers. What does it feel like to drive a plug-in hybrid like this 2016 Chevrolet Volt? Well, it's interesting because, like the 100% electric vehicles, it takes a little while to get used to the fact that there's literally no noise in the car. It's extremely quiet in here. You hear the tire noise and the road noise and the air rushing past the vehicle instead of the engine, which is to be expected when you have a car that runs off of electricity the majority of the time. Because this car can go in the 50-plus mile range using only electricity, we've been driving it around now and have still used no gas. I have 22 miles of range left, which is pretty good because we've been pushing the car kind of hard at times by accelerating and braking and driving it not like you would in a normal sense, just to kind of see what the car feels like and see if it feels like it has a reasonable amount of power. This particular Chevrolet Volt is owned by my friend Brent, who is really into having a car for his family that can go from point A to point B and save him some money along the way.
The technology is moving forward, and we're seeing that the actual price of fuel, if we're talking about electric and gas combined, the price of fuel by having a hybrid is cheaper than just buying gas. And so buying a new vehicle is something we were interested in, and this was one that actually overall, I think the comparison is $1.25 e-gallon versus whatever the price of gas is right now. So for us, it made sense to get a little bit of savings. Make it make sense. Makes it more attractive to get in involved in this, but we do like new technology in our home and kind of are interested in things that are
Sure. The latest and greatest.
Yeah, so rarely do we have something that's practical that is also
That's also kind of fun and new, and yeah.
So that
I
was,
could see that.
was all the things playing together to make this make sense for us.
So I know a lot of folks have gone with a 100% electric car like the Tesla we've got later on in the show, but there's other 100% electric vehicles that are more into this price range. Obviously the Tesla's kind of on the higher end. Why did you all choose to go with a plug-in hybrid versus 100% electric, and does it have anything to do with the fact that we're here in the Midwest?
That's exactly it. Until the charging network is fully established in our region and knowing that you can plug in no matter where you are, it made sense for us to have a hybrid, not knowing where we were going to end up, and the thought of having a limit to our distance and our range was something that we couldn't get over. So the hybrid makes a lot of sense, and I'd say 90-95% of our driving is going to be on electric. Most of our daily driving is done within that 53 miles of range.
As we were talking to Brent in the interview, he said it really does become like a game, and now that I'm driving the car by myself, I can tell you that, yeah, it does seem like you could have a lot of fun, because there's this little green leaf on the left-hand side that as you accelerate, as I push on the gas a little bit, it goes away from the center point, which means you're being the most efficient with the car. And so as you're driving along, you actually want to make it get more range. You want to kind of play this game to keep this green leaf in the center by not braking too hard and by not accelerating too hard. It kind of keeps it in the center section there, and that means that you are getting the most benefit out of the electric component.
So the plug-in hybrid option is working well for Brent and his family. They aren't ready to go 100% electric just yet. But our next guest lives a town over from Brent, and he drives a Tesla Model S 85D. Tesla just started delivering their more affordable Model 3, but really the Model S is the car that moved them from being a small niche brand to a household name. This is Mike, and his Tesla can go up to 270 miles on a single charge. Mike's a car guy, and he really loves his Tesla. Being somewhat of an early adopter here in the Midwest, I asked him about his experience and if he felt any of the dreaded range anxiety.
So Mike, tell me about your decision to purchase this car.
I like technology.
Okay.
I like the fact that this company just threw the rule book out and decided to try something different. They basically everybody said that the conventional wisdom in Detroit couldn't be done. General Motors did their EV1.
I remember that
in the late 90s and early 2000s. They were using a different battery technology, of course, and they kind of lost their shorts on that, and a guy named Bob Lutz was at General Motors, and he took a lot of flack because the EV1s all got recalled and crushed.
Sure.
They didn't sell them to anyone; they leased them. And so that gave rise to the Chevrolet Volt, and that's what got General Motors interested in electric vehicle technology. So I bought a Volt.
Oh, you did? Okay.
When they came out, and I had one of those. It was a fantastic car. And then later on, in 2014, Cadillac came out with a Voltec powertrain and a really nice looking car called a Cadillac ELR. They only sold about 2,000 of them, so you'll probably not see one around. They were
It's pretty rare.
They were rare and too expensive, and too many people compared it to the Volt at twice the price.
Right.
And so they didn't sell very, very good, but they were very nice cars. And then when Tesla came out with this model, of course, they had a ton of people that put down deposits before the car was ever even available to purchase. And they once the backlog kind of got taken care of and stuff, and they started into regular production, then that's when I started getting interested.
Sure.
So
So you've always been interested in the idea of the electric car?
Yeah, it just makes sense. If you really think about it, a lot of people don't understand this, and I did until I researched it, but one of the biggest users of electricity in this country are oil refineries. It takes a ton of electricity to refine oil. So, what you're seeing when you're seeing the efficiency of a gallon of gasoline, if you start looking at what it took to pump it out of there, to drill it, to pump it out of the ground, to transport it to a refinery, all the electricity to refine it, to transfer it back to a truck, to send it to a gas station, to electrically pump it up into your car, the efficiency is less than just converting it into
just to
energy and driving it.
Sure.
So, and it's renewable.
Sure.
And the nice thing about this car is I have a charger at home, and when I come out in the morning, I tell it how much gas, if you will, I want in my tank.
Right.
And so I come out, it's like having a gas station in your garage.
It's a weird feeling,
It's really
I'm sure.
great, you know.
Okay, so I've spent a lot of time in California. I've been to New York and these areas on the East Coast and places where there's a lot more charging stations. There's a lot more ability for somebody to have a car that's 100% electric. So how did that weigh into your factor of buying this here in the middle of America?
Well, the first thing I did is I made sure I got the longest range one that I could get.
Sure.
So when I bought this was the longest range electric vehicle that you could buy.
Sure.
This is EPA rated at 272 miles.
Sure.
And I knew the way that I drove that this is going to cover 99% of everything I do.
Okay.
I can go, if I want to run to Bentonville, I can run to Bentonville and back and so forth. And I also know that, and Tesla's really nice about giving you adapters and so forth, that this car, has adapters, so realistically, any place there's electricity, I've got fuel available.
Sure.
It might not be super fast if I have to charge in a 110. So I plan where I'm going to fuel that on a trip. And Tesla has built. They're building out the interstates first, of course.
Sure.
And then they're getting in, in some secondary roads as that goes along.
So that really hasn't been a concern for you then?
It's never been. I've never even came close to having range anxiety, which you hear a lot about.
Sure. Everybody talks about that.
Right. And the bottom line is people say, well, what happens when you run out of electricity? Well, the same thing happens is when your car runs out of gas, the car stops.
Of course.
So,
That's funny. Yeah. Hey, there you go. Yeah.
So what do you do if it runs out of electricity? Well, first of all, try to make sure you don't run out of electricity.
Right.
Just like,
like you don't want to run out of gas.
Yeah. So
one thing that I think is interesting, Mike, is you're probably the fourth or fifth person I've talked to that owns a Tesla, and everybody that owns one is just really, really passionate about being a Tesla owner. Do you feel like a sense of community with other people who have Teslas?
Absolutely. The first thing that happened to me when I bought this car, I was eating dinner in Wilder's, and the waiter came up and said, "There's a gentleman that would like to. First of all, do you have is that your white Tesla?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, would you mind? There's a gentleman here that would like to talk to you." And I said, "Sure, that'd be fine." And so he came over to the table, and it was another Tesla owner here in town, and he saw the car, and so he
wanted to visit with you about it and say, what do you like about it? Sure. Yeah. Well, I think that's just kind of a unique situation, because I feel like it's been a long time since you've had so many people that are passionate about a sedan, really. I mean, it's a very cool car, and it's just interesting because, I read all this stuff about how SUVs and crossovers and things are taking over, but there's just something about these Teslas, whether it is this one, the Model S, or the Model X, and certainly the Model 3 that's coming, that people are just really, really excited about.
After hearing from both of these owners, you may be thinking about how prevalent charging stations are where you live. One of the apps and websites I would recommend checking out is ChargePoint. While many of the cars have the charging stations already programmed into their GPS system, ChargePoint makes it easy to find one, see if anybody is currently using it, and then keep tabs on the charging while your car is plugged in. All you have to do is download the app on your smartphone and have a credit card on file in case the charging station you choose requires you to pay for the electricity. I should mention that many of them don't cost a dime. ChargePoint will then send you a card in the mail that you can attach to your keychain, or you can simply use your smartphone to unlock the cable once you pull into your parking space. Once you've done that, you just plug it into your car and you're good to go. While your car is plugged in, you can check in on it on the app to see how many miles you've added while you're eating, shopping, or sleeping. Once you return, you just unplug your car and return the cable to its holder, hit the done button on the screen, and you're ready to drive away. Different charging stations charge at different rates as well, so it's important to see what your specific car can handle. The fastest chargers are owned by Tesla, and only Tesla owners can use them. Now, when it comes to those charging times, it depends on the electric socket that you use. There are 3 levels of charging. Level 1 uses a 120-volt AC plug. Now, this would be a typical household 3-prong outlet. Level 1 charging adds 2 to 5 miles of range per hour of charging. So at that rate, you'll get about 36 miles per range for 8 hours of charging. Level 2 charging uses a 240-volt setup, which is similar to the plug your clothes dryer uses at your home. Most public charging stations use Level 2 charging. This will add approximately 10 to 20 miles of range per hour of charging. So you'll get about 120 miles of range after 8 hours of charging. The next level is called DC fast charging. Now that can add 50 to 70 miles of range every 20 minutes. So that's about 180 miles of range per hour. You can find those DC fast chargers using the ChargePoint app. Many of them are included on that. The Tesla superchargers are even faster, but again, only to be used by Tesla vehicles. They add 170 miles of range every 30 minutes. Now, if you happen to be an Empire District Electric Company customer watching this episode, you can visit their website to find a handy calculator to see what the cost savings might be for you and whether a plug-in hybrid or fully electric vehicle is right for your family. Now, I highly recommend doing this because the savings will vary greatly depending on your current vehicle and the car that you might be considering switching to. The bottom line is electric vehicles in some form or another are here to stay. More and more companies are adding models to their lineup and improving the range of existing models. They range in price from about $30,000 to well over $1 million, so there really is something for everybody. As far as the Midwest is concerned, the number of new public charging stations is growing at a faster rate than you might think, which makes electric cars a more viable option. Well, thanks very much for watching this edition of Phil's Morning Drive. You can find out more about the rebates through Empire District if you go to evolvewithempire.com, and you can find out a lot more about electric vehicles and more episodes of our show by going to our website at philsmorningdrive.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.